Hi, everyone. I'm Rowena. I'm one of the delegates representing Asian Neuropsychological Association, or ANA. Just as a very kind of brief overview of ANA is sort of like the sort of organization with a general mission to encourage or ensure accessibility and provision of sort of culturally sensitive neuropsych services for individuals of Asian descent. I just want to go over some of a few of the things we were able to achieve the past year in through our organization. Um, One of the big things that in the past year we were able to do was have our first inaugural sort of ANA Research Day. This was developed sort of in ways to highlight sort of the different research conducted by both our sort of ANA members within the US, but also importantly, sort of allow discussions and collaborations with our international scholars as well. And so it was a nice sort of first time for us to be able to kind of have a safe space for scholars across multiple countries to talk about their work and also to kind of increase discussion about potential collaborations. Across multiple conferences at the INS and also at the last AACN, we had multiple sort of research symposiums, paper presentations, poster presentations, and panel presentations. And this spanned from talking sort of resource development about sort of developing clinical kind of practices or guidelines or kind of clinical suggestions, recommendations, and to discussions about how to increase a more appropriate culturally sensitive sort of supervision experiences, and also culturally sensitive assessment practices. And so we had a wide range of different sort of research and kind of clinical presentations across various professional conferences to kind of highlight sort of the work that we're doing at within ANA committees and within ANA scholars. We also had several manuscript publications spearheaded by ANA committees, including advocacy committees. These again spanned across like sort of looking into sort of neuropsychological practices with Asian populations or Asian neuropsychologists. And then also like a paper that came out with regards to sort of the different measures that are felt to be culturally insensitive and suggestions on ways to kind of ameliorate that in future directions. And then last, we also had a research workshop series that was developed by the ANA Research Committee to kind of encourage more discussion and also highlight different types of work and spearheaded by different ANA members and faculty. And these were meant to be supportive and also educational for sort of early career and also trainee ANA members, but also allow like a forum for discussions for other people who are interested in those works for collaborations and ways to obtain some sort of similar or mentorship. So a lot of different projects that we had accomplished the past year, and a lot of this was to also kind of increase accessibility for kind of collaboration, increase kind of space and forums for and discussion between scholars and researchers and clinicians within ANA members in the US and internationally. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Laurie.
Hi, I'm Laurie Chin. I'm one of the other CNC delegates representing ANA. I'm currently a postdoc, so I'm one of the trainee delegates representing ANA, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our challenges and some of the initiatives that ANA has spearheaded over the past year. So the primary challenge that we were recognizing, and this is a pattern that I think we've noticed in other organizations, professional organizations we've been a part of, is recruitment of ANA members to committee leadership positions. And, this could have been, possibly like a byproduct of, coming out of the pandemic, albeit it's still ongoing, but people coming back to work, returning to office, and just being spread a bit thin. So we've noticed it's been a bit more difficult to recruit folks into these leadership positions. So that was one of the primary challenges that we faced over the past year. So we wanted to focus our initiatives on how can we address this challenge. We understand that a lot of, being a part of a professional organization isn't paid work. This is things that we do. We volunteer our time to do. And so we understand and can empathize with that this can be, adding a leadership position can be a big ask for folks, especially as they work their way up professionally and have more responsibilities. So one of the initiatives, speaking to what Rowena said about just this, just being more inclusive about international members. So, there's a lot of in neuropsychology, this is something that is a practice that is quite global, but a lot of the organizations that we're familiar with are very North American centered. And so we have this unique opportunity, getting to connect with other Asian neuropsychology trainees and neuropsychologists that are practicing in Asian countries and bringing them into the conversation. And, we've noticed over the past year or two with this inclusivity of international members on ANA committees, we're getting these different perspectives that have really helped us to kind of conceptualize this more like cross-cultural and like these different considerations. For example, one thing that came up in a recent meeting was payment, just payment for membership and how that international members were struggling to make payments through PayPal. So we were problem solving together, and we wouldn't have known this if we didn't have that voice and that representation of our international members. So I thought that this initiative that is ongoing to really expand our perspectives as a primarily North American organization, but really just expand our perspective more globally. Another thing that we have also spearheaded more recently, very recently, is the establishment of the ANA Steering Committee. So what this is in an effort to address the challenge of recruitment for ANA members. It's a hard ask to just ask someone out of the blue to take on a leadership position. So what are some ways we can scaffold that? Maybe that leadership development, maybe if they're not as comfortable in a leadership position, but just starting off with our committees themselves. And so the steering committee is made up of not only the executive committee, but also the chairs of the different committees, like the research committee, education committee, membership committee, and they are now voting members of uh, certain initiative, depending on the initiative that is presented to our EC. And so that just helps kind of create that scaffolding of, they're part of the conversation, they're part of the decision-making process. And hopefully that creates that buy-in and just that general investment in leadership within our organization. So again, that's a pretty new initiative that we just began. So we're kind of trial and erroring it, but I think this is a step in the right direction, just given the challenges we were facing with recruitment. And then lastly, and the other theme about kind of what our achievements have been focused on research. There's been a greater focus on research mentorship, for trainees like myself. I really benefited from the mentorship program through ANA. And for myself, being more coming from a clinically focused program, but wanting more of that research mentorship, I think we've been trying to really be more intentional about how we can foster that. So that could be through like office hours or that formal mentor-mentee relationship, and maybe just workshops on, how to write grants. How do you kind of just get your foot in the door if research wasn't part of your formal education, and expanding that accessibility for trainees early career and into their early career. So yeah, and those are our updates. So thank you.